Okay, so want to do this morning just to kind of show off our current settings. Go right here to league settings first and show you that we are doing trades are disabled right now. They won't be obviously in the real thing. The big thing to look at here is superstar abilities are off, and barring any major feedback, they'll stay off. For franchise, ability edit controls don't matter because that's for superstar abilities. We won't have them, but if we do add them back, they'll only be edited by the commissioner. Acquiring staff points is normal, so we won't slow that down any at all. Obviously injuries will be on, but I will say that before we start the new actual live franchise, pre-existing injuries will be off, so anybody that's currently injured on your team or in real life won't be injured when we start up. So if you have anybody that is out, you won't have to worry about that part of it. Practice squad ceiling is always off because we want people to fill out the waiver forms for any practice squad players. We don't want people just snagging people off practice squads without notifications. Read the rules on that one if you're not sure about that one. Progressive injury, practice injury, yeah, all that stuff's going to be on because that's actually stuff that makes it more realistic. This is one we don't talk about a whole ton. Play call cooldown. Basically, from the time you call a play in a formation, you can't call that play again for 5 plays, and you cannot call a play more than 3 times in a game. I don't see that being any problem with the rules we have. But just be aware that you cannot call the same play more than 3 times in a game. Now, it's out of the same formation, so if you call like a halfback dive in different formations, that doesn't count. But if you call it in the same formation 3 times in a game, it will lock out and you'll have to choose a different play. That may be more of a problem this year with the smaller playbooks on offense and defense. This is also something I want to show off. Minimum roster size is 48. We want you at 53. But this is mainly for like preseason and whenever we're trying to get our salary cap in order. Sometimes you got to drop below that threshold of 53, and so we want to allow that to a certain extent but not be ridiculous about it. So you can cut down to 48, but we want you at 53 every week, week in and week out, so keep that in mind. Currently there's none of this is turned on unless some dork nut makes me turn it on. Hopefully we don't have any issues with rage cutters, because if we do, they'll be gone. It won't go down to the PA. The WFL PA won't be involved with that. If you rage cut people, I'll just kill you and catch you out of here and be done with it. This is one I'm talking with leadership about. Breakout scenarios are on, that's fine. The development trait regression, we sort of talked about building a system for this Madden and doing regression ourselves. I may change that and go to development trait regression on and just turn these up to the max. They're not turned up right now. That's something leadership and I are still talking about, so that's not, so right now the way it's set is the way it will be in franchise when we go live, but that may change. If it does, we'll notify you via announcement, but I want to let you know in this video as I'm showing off these sliders, you know, that could happen. 9-minute quarters, we haven't had any complaints on the shortening of the game so far. We're normally a 10-minute quarter setup, but had a couple of feedbacks saying that the games were too long, and when I played one, it was right at 70 minutes, so 9 minutes might help us out, especially those of us that have to dedicate a lot of time to you know, cut away family time to play this. So we're going to try this, and hopefully it won't take away from the number of plays guys have. Everything else, this is all customizable on your end, so this is not anything that's required to set up. This is all stuff set up. Obviously, showing you the password here doesn't matter. This is the slider test password. I mean, look at that thing, it's ridiculous. We do on our end turn off ball hawk and heat seeker. We do not allow you to use those. Switch assist we turn on. So that's all stuff that we set on our end. So just to let you know that ball hawk and heat seeker are off. And switch assist is on for everyone, so that's kind of a default de facto thing for everybody. So that's it for that side. Main thing I want to show you there is that we are on All Pro. Franchise settings. I'll show off XP sliders as well because these are from Madden 22. Pulled them directly from Madden 22. Oh, I'll say I pulled them direct from Madden 22. Madden 22 with some tweaks. Quarterbacks are at 85, halfbacks 100, tight ends 110, wide receivers 100, fullbacks 125, tackles, guards, and centers are at 125. Defensive ends are at 100, tackles are at 115, middle linebackers are 100, out 100. These are all 100, and then kickers are 150. Not much is tweaked. The main tweaks we made is defensive tackles because you can't user them. Everything else on the field on defense you can user. So if you user a particular player enough, you can get kind of, I don't want to use the word overstat, but essentially you can kind of force feed them stats and get them XP that way. So we're just going to keep it generic. On the offensive side, quarterback has been lowered because that's the easiest one to kind of overstat. Halfbacks we left at 100. I think last year was at 90. I'm going to try it at 100 and see for a season and see how it goes. Tight ends, it's a little harder to force feed them. They can be force fed, so that one might be tweaked as well. Wide receivers are right at 100. Fullbacks, I mean, who has a fullback nowadays? But if you do, you get bonus XP there. And O-line, because they're so lower rated and lower acting in Madden, we gave them 125 across the board, so that way they could maybe tweak up and get caught up with defensive ends, defensive tackles, and edge rushers. That worked well for us last year and in the past, so we're just going to kind of stick with that. So that's XP gain. You can kind of, I'll go through it again real slow to kind of let you pause the video if you need to kind of catch these things. So that's the XP settings. So if you want to kind of mimic the XP settings in an offline franchise, if you want to do that, that's fine. Here's the one you're probably really geared up for, is the gameplay. And you'll probably notice that there's not a lot tweaked. I know we've got some feedback on pass blocking being too high. I don't know. The games I've played, I played with the Saints in this test franchise. I have not played yet with the Seahawks since swapping over, and I think in that game we had some okay sack numbers. I think it was mostly blitz related is where we got sacks in. I'll talk with leadership and see if we need to lower that before we start the live. Quarterback accuracy, especially with skill-based passing, I want to leave it at 50. I know most franchises like to lower it to make the bad quarterbacks bad, but I feel like with skill-based passing and that new system, I feel like the bad quarterbacks will not play elite level. I mean, you can maybe try and get them there, but it's going to be a lot tougher than it has been in Madden's past. So, wide receiver catching, I know last year in our Madden 22 franchise, we had it at like 47. I don't think it's enough to really tweak. I think the only thing I might raise would be fumbles to prevent them from occurring a little bit more. Pass reaction time, if anything, it's going to get lowered before we start, but I haven't heard any feedback one way or the other on pass defense. I've heard pretty much that sliders are okay in this regard. The only one I significantly lowered on both sides has been interceptions at 12. That's for CPU and for user. This is the user side, obviously. And then CPU's down here. You can see, like, as far as the sliders go, we have not really tweaked them. Like, this pretty much generic all-pro minus the interceptions. The only thing that might get lowered or raised because of the way the slider works with fumbles, we're probably going to eventually raise fumbles up a skosh. I'm thinking no more than about 55 to 60, at most 60. And then pass blocking, if we lower it, I'm thinking maybe at low as 45, because I feel like the pass rush is there if you've got good edge rushers or good pass rush in general. And a blitz should always have a chance of getting home, especially if you don't defend against it. If you don't, hot route your blockers to either catch the side of the blitz where the blitz come from, or if you don't hot route like a running back or a tight end to stay in a pass block. So if you don't do that, you deserve to get sacked, especially if you know it's coming. So I think we're good, honestly. I think the sliders are probably the smoothest I've seen in years as far as not needing a ton of tweaking, which is something you can't really say about previous Maddens. You had to really kind of balls up these darn things to get them to work right, and even then they still wouldn't work right. I feel like, unless I hear any significant feedback form issues, I haven't seen but 5 or 6 come in, and most of them have been pretty happy with everything. And after the first one, I turned down interceptions just because with this new system and the way pass defense jump stuff, it's really can be punishing. I think guys are just going to have to get used to not trying to make throws that they've made Madden 22 and earlier. They can't make them in this version, at least as it stands now, because the pass defense is way more reactive than it's ever been, which I'm not complaining about. Special teams, we usually tweak. We've tweaked these in the past. I'm going to leave them all alone for right now. I might tweak down field goal accuracy just because it's easier to make those kicks online, especially if you have a good connection, but I might leave it the same just because, well, it's for those that don't have good connections. Everything else I'm probably just going to leave there. Kickoff power might be the only thing that drops, and it won't drop below 45. Anything on as far as special teams won't go below what we had in Madden 22, which is 45 was the minimum. Excuse me, the minimum on all that stuff. Injuries, I think default is 20. I can't remember if I adjusted this one or not. I don't know if it was 25 and I dropped it down, but either way, it's at 20. Fatigue's at 55, and minimum speed threshold is at 70. So that's a big change up. So that way, just be aware that the fast guys are going to be noticeably faster than the slow guys. So speed will be more important. As much as I preach, don't have speed, don't do speed. This is a franchise where speed will be important. Offsides and false start, these are the penalty side. I have not seen many penalties called anyway, and I know some people talk to me about upping defensive pass interference, and I thought I could up defensive holding. I put that on the forum. Defensive holding is not one I can react to. But defensive pass interference is already at 77. I mean, I could tweak it up to 80, but I haven't seen a whole lot of penalties and a little bit of chance I've gotten to play a human opponent. I'm not playing the CPU just because that's not what I like to do. I mean, we do need slider testing for that. I just don't really want to set aside the time to test against the CPU. I'd rather test against users because that's the majority of our game should be against users. Roughing the passer has dropped. Everything else you can kind of see has been raised up a little bit, and I don't think we're going to change this much between now and live. So just be aware that this is probably where we're going to be at from a penalty standpoint. Everything else, all the goofy penalties, intentional grounding, roughing the kicker, running into the kicker, all that's on. But yeah, that kind of gives you an idea of our sliders. So if you want to play around, like I said, it's pretty much default. I mean, there's not a whole lot of change, and I don't foresee a lot of change between now and the time we go live. Hopefully we'll go live this week, so that way we can kind of get going a little bit. As soon as they drop the week 1 53-man rosters, I'll get to work creating the players for rookie carryover, and then I will go ahead and start up the franchise. I will try and start it up in preseason if I can, so that way we can have that time to do our off-season regimen stuff, but that'll be for another video. We'll talk about that in another video, but I want to show you guys the sliders. If you need to, obviously just pause at certain points to get the numbers. So if you watch, thanks for watching. If you're going to watch, enjoy the video. It's not super entertaining, but hopefully it gives you some insight on what we're doing. Appreciate you. Have a good one.